Most of the times football games are not the place that business gets done. There's too much else going on. The structure of how we bring people in, out, and the flow of how the suite works made that almost seamless. I was really surprised, to be honest with you, of how much actual business can occur in those fun environments. The prospect or the donor is so relaxed in that setting that it is not a stuffy one-on-one meeting. I actually signed a gift agreement in the suite this year with a 7-figure donor who just said, just bring it to the suite, I'll be there. You don't need to come to my office, bring it by the suite, we'll be there. And we did it right there in the third quarter.
Welcome to the EverTrue Innovators podcast, where we meet the innovative voices behind the ideas moving fundraising forward. Hannah, good morning.
Good morning, Keith.
Custom invites from the university president, the first lady, and the mascots, I gotta tell you, that is the recipe for how one fills a football suite.
Yeah, 91 RSVPs and a packed house for all 7 home games.
Let's hear from the winner of the Game Day Innovation Award, Texas State University, and their team.
Thank you so much for joining us as an innovator, and congratulations on this award. The goal of the Innovators is really to bring together the awesome work that our customers are doing, both to recognize it and to provide an outlet to idea share and be resources for each other. This industry is very big on sharing whatever works best, and that's one of my favorite parts of being able to work in it, is just learning from each other. So this conversation is to learn more about this campaign that you've been running so that we can provide some inspiration for other folks who are looking to do something similar.
I would love for everyone to please introduce themselves and let us know who you are and anything you want to say about the program in general. We're all ears and happy to hear it.
Great. I'll start and then we'll go around the table. Brooks Hull, Vice President, University Advancement, Texas State University. Longtime ThankView customer and very excited about how we're utilizing this product. We fully embrace the platform and all the capabilities that we're still testing and continue to utilize in new ways, including the project we're talking about today, which is personalization to sit in a presidential suite by our president and first lady, a prospect research tool that we're utilizing, seeing who responds, the ability to track the responses as well as who's looking at some of the information gives us a lot of leads. The success of the program was extremely impressive to us. We didn't really know when we first got started that we would switch it up this way. It used to be an email followed by a phone call, followed by personal touches, followed by a gift officer following up. It took a lot of manual labor to do it, and this really removed that level of overhead for us as an organization, and we found it to be extraordinarily personal and well received. So we're thrilled to be recognized for this and very encouraged by how we can continue our partnership and grow it into other areas. I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah Sims, Associate Vice President of Donor Engagement. Several teams fall under my purview that touch this process: special events, communications, donor relations, fund stewardship, and annual giving. All of those areas coincide within this project because it touches everything. It's our donors, there's communication pieces, it's an event aspect. So it's a very comprehensive engagement experience for us to implement and for our donors as well.
Nicole Annable, Executive Director of University Advancement. I will say that, at Texas State University, we've seen iterations of President's Suite throughout the years. And this last one was the best year we've ever had. It was efficient. The folks invited loved it. Us on the advancement side found it extremely helpful and streamlined. It was all around a huge success, and we're excited about this tool.
And I'm Carly Beach. I'm the Director for Presidential Donor Events and Projects. I worked closely with Nicole and the Prospect Research team to get the suite filled.
Thank you so much for joining us today. For this conversation, we'd like to kick things off with our warm-up. This is something we've asked everybody so far that's been on the podcast. What is one piece of conventional wisdom about stewardship, donor relations, or fundraising that you secretly disagree with?
This is a concept we are trying to apply at Texas State, especially coming out of post-campaign, but is the idea that it's not just our biggest donors that deserve impact reporting and personalized communications, it's our donors at all levels. Oftentimes we get pigeonholed into either the very top donors or the annual giving level, and there's not a comprehensive reporting program or impact reporting or even engagement program for donors at all levels. This has been really important for us coming out of campaign because we had a whole lot of new donors to the institution and we had them at all levels. We are working very hard to create a robust, comprehensive program that gives every donor some type of impact and understanding about the importance of philanthropy to Texas State and what that ultimately accomplishes.
I would take it one step further and say a myth that we're busting on this is that personalized stewardship and personalized engagement has to be given individually by a gift officer or a person on the ground. I think this project really showed the ability to be extraordinarily personalized without having a gift officer pick up a phone, send the email from the gift officer or an email from me. Rather, we did a very personalized message from our president and first lady from their suite, giving it a very authentic feel. I think we're proving not just the efficiency of it, but the effectiveness of it with some of our trackable and measurable outcomes. I think that's something we do a little bit different here at Texas State. We highly value human interaction and the one-to-one interaction that we do.
I think that's a great segue to just go into the talking about this campaign. So the presidential football suite campaign combined high touch experiences with digital first outreach. So can you talk about what inspired the idea to take this approach and completely reimagine how you are inviting donors to the suite on game day?
Yeah, I think Nicole can probably talk about a little bit more of a historical perspective on how the presidential suite was filled. So we wanted to have a reboot on how we did that to start with, rather than going down lists of people who had been invited in past years and were unable to come, members of boards, highest ranked contributors, and then obviously friends that we were trying to engage with at a higher level, and really utilize our research office and our prospect research team, which Nicole supervises, to develop a really well thought out and very strategic list for how we would approach it, even prior to the decision of how we would deliver the invitation. So Nicole?
Yes. When you're looking at a presidential football suite, instead of reacting to who's actually coming into the suite, we wanted to take a proactive approach. We really wanted to look at it and say, at the end of the season, what did we want to accomplish? What connections do we want to make? And that's how we approached the football season. ThankView allowed us to not only look through and see who we wanted to invite, but also reach out to folks who would not have normally responded or haven't responded in the past to those types of invitations in a very unique way. And we got to utilize that tool with a fresh group of faces. So it was a great opportunity for us to expand our reach.
Typically, this type of outreach, these types of invites tended to rely on mailed invites and email templates, but you chose to go the ThankView route, chose to go the personalized video route, which obviously is very exciting for us. But what made you turn to personalized video? Was there any reason why you were turning away from some of the more quote unquote traditional methods?
I don't think we looked at it in a negative light of what had happened in the past. I think part of what we saw, and you see from our video, is our president and first lady are extraordinarily charismatic and very well known on social media channels. It would be unusual for our president to not be personally involved in an invitation like that. The delivery mechanism was really a no-brainer for us because we knew it was consistent with who our president and first lady already are. And I think that's why the response was so strong. It's extremely authentic. That is who they are. That was not a rehearsal, well-scripted invitation. That was go be yourself and who people love and watch the responses pile in. We were not surprised by the response. What we were excited about was how quickly it developed and how easy and the transition of getting people from the invite to the suite and then welcomed in a one-on-one personal environment. That's where Carly comes in. As really the hosts of the suites. We host the suite with the president. You really have a dynamic set of people in good-sized presidential suite, highly engaged and interacting with each other. It is a very welcoming and free environment. Yelling is allowed. There's a lot of festivities that go on around it. There's a huge student interaction that happens in the presidential suite. And so I really just think it was the consistency of message of who we are and who we will continue to be. And that is so strongly led by our president and then transitioned to our staff. Everybody just understands that. So there's never a rehearsed moment of what we do. It's very natural, which I think is extraordinarily unique in our business.
I'm glad that ThankView could essentially be the vehicle to let them shine which is really exciting. So I would love to talk about some of the logistics a little more specifically. You've shared that these are very authentic videos. They're not scripted, which is awesome because that's obviously going to connect and feel a lot more natural for your president and first lady. Ultimately, this podcast is meant to learn and hopefully use some of these techniques. So please spare no detail. Tell us, how did you make it happen? Was it an internal video team, external? What kind of setup did you have? I'm sure everyone would love to know.
So it was actually a very simple process. We have a good working relationship with our Marcom team, with our university level marketing and communications team, and they do all videos of the president. We made sure to late spring or so, put in a request with them, let them know what we wanted to do and what the vision was. They recorded it for us over the summer based off of the president's availability. As Brooks said, it was not heavily scripted at all. They took Beth and Kelly Damphus, our president and first lady, up into their suite at the stadium in the middle of the summer, and they brought in Boko, who is our mascot, and they just had them talk to the audience the way that they always do. People resonate with President Damphus. They connect with him and with Beth. And so by putting them as just casually talking was imperative to us because individuals come to the suite to be with them. It was a very short video. They talked about the fact that we had just been at our first bowl game in the previous year. It was shaping up to be a great season, and invited them to attend one game in the fall in their suite. We had a little bit of information on the landing page below the video, as well as the RSVP link. And that link went back to Carly. Carly could manage all of the RSVPs behind the scenes. So she knew exactly where everybody was going, where to put them into the suite, any follow-up communications that she would need to do, and so forth. One of the best parts, because of the metrics available in ThankView, we knew who had opened the invite and who had not. After a week or two, anybody who had not opened the ThankView, we were able to follow up with them personally, or we had their development officer forward them the ThankView and say, hey, I hope you received your invitation. Please see below. We'd love to have you. So the metrics were really key for us in being able to determine our follow-up strategy and the timing of that. And the suites actually filled this year a lot quicker than they have historically as well because of that.
I will say that, kind of follow what Brooks and Sarah both said. The Damphuses, they're a fun pair. And to start the whole suite invitation off with a fun video really follows how they are. If we would have sent them a stuffy email or even a printed invitation, I think guests would have had a different approach to how they entered the suite. And when they got to the suite door, a student and a staff member would greet them, and they would be told the two rules of the suite, which are cheer loud for the Bobcat and don't go home hungry. And that just hopefully kicked off or continued the fun, energetic invitation to the suite. People were responding in ThankView. Hey, thank you so much, President Damphus. We look forward to this.
Part of the reason it was just as successful on our side behind the scenes was because of the speed of the response and the knowledge of knowing who was coming. Our research team was able to do the profiles for these individuals who were going to be in the suite a whole lot quicker and provide those back to me, the gift officers, and our president. As a vice president, it became a really easy way for me to identify which gift officers I wanted to come by the suite and which ones were not needed on that game day, rather than I need everybody, all hands on deck to be there at some point in time. It really helped us coordinate the flow of what happens in the suite, but also we had the right gift officer at the right time with the right prospect interacting during a sporting event, which, you know, over the last 27 plus years I've been doing this, most of the times football games are not the place that business gets done. There's too much else going on. The structure of how we bring people in, out, and the flow of how the suite works made that almost seamless. I was really surprised, to be honest with you, of how much actual business can occur in those fun environments. The prospect or the donor is so relaxed in that setting that it is not a stuffy one-on-one meeting. I actually signed a gift agreement in the suite this year with a 7-figure donor who just said, just bring it to the suite. I'll be there. You know, and you don't need to come to my office. Bring it by the suite. We'll be there. And we did it right there in the third quarter. I just think we're onto something here. It's not a suit and tie, buttoned up event. It is people in their natural element having fun.
That's great. Wow. It's a really amazing blend of authenticity and strategy, this whole campaign. And so it's no wonder that it's resulting in gifts occurring right in the suite itself, which is a really amazing story. So one last logistical question, just kind of curious, product-wise, how did using EverTrue and Razor's Edge paired together help your team make more efficient or strategic choices during this campaign?
For a prospect research standpoint, a lot of what we do here, we're trying to be a well-oiled machine in an area, particularly football suites, where you are very much going week by week, and prospect research are trying to make sure they get those bios out, trying to make sure that they hit those timelines. With this function of connecting to RE, Razor's Edge, and being able to have real-time information and getting the responses that we did, we were able to allow our bios to be created well in advance. We were hitting those timelines from a staff point, wanting to be an employer of choice, if you will. We're sitting there watching our staff really thrive, knowing that they're going to hit those timelines. They feel really comfortable with that because it's all connecting or getting that information to them at the right time. From that standpoint, it really checks a lot of boxes for us.
The integration between ThankView and Razor's Edge is really important to us. We are a very data-driven organization, and we are implementing a lot of systems and technologies that help us actually get the data behind the engagement. The fact that all of the sends, the opens, the responses are automatically integrated into Razor's Edge is big for us, because then we can see that in real time. We know exactly who is engaging with the content and who isn't. We know immediately if there needs to be a development officer, follow-up, and so forth. And obviously, all of those things also count towards our metrics. So they count as a communication. They count as an interaction. When somebody responds to a thank you and it goes into their record, that counts in our alumni engagement metrics as interactions and so forth. It feeds a lot of different needs.
Which, to Sarah's point, our alumni engagement metrics have gone way up. Here's the truth of the matter, speaking from the vice president's seat. I like post-game reports. I want to see all of it, and I usually want to see it in a pretty timely manner. The integration of data, to Sarah's point, is the most critical piece of where our success is going to be going forward. And that is, we're able to see who got invited. Did they go back and look? Did they show up to the event? Did they stay for the event? Did they do a post summary with us about them being at that? And what has the follow-up strategy been from a gift officer in the follow-up to that? Put all of that overlay with what does it really cost for us to do that? We measure everything. Without good data and the integration of the data coming in real time, pre, during, and post, we're unable to get a true picture of what our operations are truly costing us. That is how we make decisions here at Texas State. And that is how we will make our strategies going forward. I can't stress enough that the data integration is extraordinarily important to us and is what makes our decisions on how to partner and who to partner with.
So as a frontline worker who is entering the data into RE to keep Brooks happy when it comes to having the data in there quickly, it was very helpful that it just smoothly transitioned from EverTrue ThankView to RE, because that was one less time that I had to touch that invitation. So that was helpful when running around in between football games and getting those invitations sent into RE and then the responses and everything. It was just a breath of fresh air on this end as the person who was entering the documentation into RE.
Thank you so much for diving into all of that. I want to get back into what the suite was like itself. And Brooks, you had mentioned that there was a dynamic group of people that were engaged with the university and with each other when they were there. So from this campaign, you received 91 RSVPs and you filled the suite for all 7 home games. Can you share a little bit about what types of conversations or relationships came from the suite? And were there any standout stories that you have as a result?
To your question, what kind of things happen in the suite? I think I want to go back to the environment that's created there. I think it's important to note that the cabinet members stop and swing through the suite, but don't stay. It's not unusual to have our other coaches from other sports stop by, but don't stay. The head football coach's wife stops in quite a bit, the athletic director and his wife. So there's a lot of movement going on and a lot of different kinds of donors. I will say that we stay really strong on the academic side in the President's Suite because the athletic director is really strong on the pure athletic donors. But I also think it's important the entire top level of our suites is completely filled with donors. I think the President's Suite is becoming a much more serious environment without being stuffy, if that makes sense. People are very comfortable and accustomed to, if we need to take 10 minutes to have a conversation about where we are in a gift, it's a great time to do that over a meal, over a break. A lot of television breaks. Everybody knows that. When you're watching it at home, you're watching commercials. And when you're in the stadium, nothing's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some ways to do that. I think the timing of bringing gift officers and other parts of the university in also is very key to driving those conversations. Real home runs, it turns out on a lot of game days around the suite, the gift officer has been in touch with that donor either that week or in that process of closing a gift. So there's a great stewardship moment for a lot of them. That's the first time they see me after they make a gift, and I'm briefed on that. So I get to go over and say, thanks. We've done check presentations in the suite that were driven by the donor. They said, hey, I brought you a check to the suite today. Can you take it, Brooks? Of course we're going to take that. So there's a lot of closing. There's a great deal of stewardship. There's always cultivation, but this is extraordinarily personalized and strategic cultivation. You're coming to the presidential suite with a specific purpose, and you know why you're there. The gift officer doesn't miss that opportunity. One of the secret weapons of our suite are the students that we have there. They are just credible. This is the real deal at Texas State University. We know who we are, what we're about, who we're going to be, and what we stand for. And everyone who's in that suite, there's no questioning about why am I here and who are these people. And I think that is just an incredible opportunity for us.
You created a very authentic digital piece to this, utilizing the president and the first lady for the outreach itself. You created a very authentic in-person experience in the suite. How did using the in-person experience influence the follow-up that you ended up doing after the event itself?
In terms of data, post-interaction follow-up, things along those lines. Historically, our division has been very events heavy. Coming out of the campaign, we are wanting to make a transition to not just events for events' sake, but strategic events. And there may be some that we need to stop doing. But the only way that we're going to know that is really by digging into the data and the metrics out of these events. So we have established a very formalized process of post-event follow-up with attendees. We survey after every single event now. Typically, we will also include pictures from the event and any other appropriate links to share information with them. We thank them for coming and so forth. And those survey results are reported in the post-event document or recap. That's where we put in everything in terms of communication open rates, attendee lists, and we've even gotten it down to being able to determine who at that event were donors and at what levels. And that's giving us key insight to tell us, are we getting the right people in the room? Are we getting donors in the room? Or are the vast majority of our events being attended by non-donors? And what does that mean? Are we translating them into donors in the long run? And does that event have anything to do with that? And that helps us make strategic decisions about events moving forward.
You have this amazing process, this amazing approach, and you've seen all of this great success with it. So what's on your mind for next? How are you making sure that everyone's continuing to stay engaged after they have this suite experience? And then also, how do you see the suite experience evolving and your outreach around it evolving as well?
I'll just say, as far as what's next for this football season, when you're looking at your calendar year, what might surprise folks is that we calendar things out. We put it into a systematic format that we can look back on and see where we can improve. One thing we saw last year is we want to start in April instead of May, because we want to get some gift officer feedback earlier in the process as our prospect research team starts to curate who's going to be invited to these suites. The process will start now. We're going to have a kickoff call with our team this month. They know there's going to be a path to follow. There's going to be comfort around the timelines. We are not a group of folks who just rush towards the end. We like to carefully lay out our plan. So that's a note for those who want to follow this template, is to think through what your timeline looks like. And I think for us, we're going to be starting in June and July, where those invites are going to start going out because football comes up quick. And if you are not catching people while they're out on vacation, you're going to hit the fall saying, what happened? So we really are careful about that on this end.
What advice do you have for other institutions that are looking to create a donor experience like this, something where people feel like they can either connect with the president and first lady or the institution in a very authentic way where they feel very comfortable?
I would say for us, it's been critical to represent Kelly and Beth's style throughout all of our event planning because they have become synonymous with our institution. So we have taken great strides to change up the way we are talking about things and how we are talking to people so that it better aligns with who Texas State is right now. We're not a highly formalized, stuffy institution. We are a very first-gen proud institution. We are a heavily minority institution. The vast majority of our students are Pell Grant eligible. So we have a very different culture here. There is not this long history of multi-generational family giving at an institution like Texas State. So it's important for us to create that culture that is accessible to everybody at every level. Most of our students and alumni may not know a lot about philanthropy or why it matters. So when we try to create experiences along these lines, we're trying to create that comfort, that accessibility for everybody. We don't want you to come to an event and feel like it's not for you and that you don't belong there. We're trying to recreate all of those elements in our communications, the way we speak, how we design our event programs, who we have up on the stage and who is speaking, and quite honestly, who is not. Brooks and I are very adamant about the fact that we don't need to be on the stage really ever. Our beneficiaries, students, faculty, and other university leadership need to take that stage because they represent the Texas State culture at its epitome. We try to thread that needle through everything we do in our planning.
Be very sure of who you are when you make that invitation. We don't expect people to be like us. There's a very good reason it works for us, which Sarah said perfectly. It's because we live and breathe it. And I think being yourself, understanding your institution, and in particular for a project like this, know the true capacity and desire of your leader, and their expectation is critical to any success. This may not work for everybody, but it works for us. Black tie dinners don't work for us, but they work for some great organizations we aspire to be, but it's unlikely we will do that. We took away a formal dinner for our alumni association this year and went to Western chic or Texas chic. That's boots and suits, y'all. At the top of the chain of what you wear, that's not tuxedos. And that's just who we are. And we're not going to take a step back to that. But we're not saying everybody ought to do that. There is a great institution 35 miles up the street from us that is a phenomenal institution that does things extraordinarily well and very different from us. There is an institution 2.5 hours from us that is their own culture of their own kind and one of the most well-known universities in the world because they know who they are and they do things differently than we'll ever do them. It's not about who does it best. It's who does it most authentic about who they truly are. And Sarah nailed it on the head of who we are every day. And we just don't have to change that for any event that we do.
Well, as someone who has had to spend well over an hour, maybe an hour and a half trying to tie a bow tie for a wedding, I'm sure everyone appreciates the fact that there are no black tie events. Boots and suits sounds definitely more up my alley. I want to congratulate you. I think this is going to be an incredibly inspiring story. I think a lot of folks are going to head into this thinking like, wow, this is a really fun campaign we can emulate. But hopefully after listening to this, they're really going to emulate a lot of your ethos and the why behind things too. I do want to ask one last question before we wrap up here. You did mention before that one of the rules of the suites is leaving with no empty stomachs. What is the number one premier food item that is offered at the suite?
I always enjoyed setting the menu. Each week we looked at who our opponent would be. So when we played the Raging Cajuns, we made sure there was a Cajun flair to what was provided in the suite. This year, we actually added a carving station. So at each game, there was a carving station. We had a prime rib. We had fajitas during one of the games. So it would start off fairly formal with that type of a meal. And then At halftime, usually the president would try to pop back in. First Lady Dampus would do a toast to the game and with a Boco River float, because the river runs through university or the campus. We wanted to give an ode to it. So it came in its own little special cup with Boco floating down the river. And on the straws, we would put a gummy lifesaver so it looked like an inner tube. That would also prompt us to flip the menu. And usually the second half of the game would be like fun foods. A couple of games we had pizza, but one of the big ticket items was walking tacos this year. After a couple of games, Brooks was like, hey, can we have a couple of healthy options? So we made sure to add fruit and sometimes yogurt during the second half of the game. But yeah, if you went home hungry, it wasn't because we didn't provide food or Brooks ate all the deviled eggs.
I mean, shame on me for thinking sports sweets and like chicken fingers is basically what popped in my.
I would also say that the President's Suite, for those of us who enjoy refreshments during football games, has its own cup. It's like an insulated Yeti type, keeps your drink cold, but it's only in the President's Suite. Part of the fun and the authenticity of us is it's not unusual for people to leave with their cup. You see these gold cups all over the place in people's homes, and it's a telltale they were in the President's Suite. It's interesting to watch them try to gather cups. These are donors. They think these cups are so cool. The river float drink is always a huge deal. It's really a lot of fun. So
a lot of work, but it really is. We had a 100-year-old.
We did a birthday for him.
Yep.
He recently passed away, but he went to 2 football games with us this year and was recognized on the field. He was a veteran. I mean, it was just, and that was like a huge moment. We had to dedicate 8 seats within the suite. It was the biggest deal for this guy. Yeah. It's not unusual to have military veterans in our suite. It's not unusual to have police officers off duty. It's not unusual for us to have elected officials, but it's not only them while they're there. It's this wonderful blend of who we are. And I think that's back to Sarah's point. It's just who we are.
We tried to bring in our community partners, right? And one of our city manager got to come to one of the games and she was like, this is date night for us. And we are thrilled to be here. President Dampus had invited our hockey coach and he was like, I'm ready to do it again next week. We have one donor who will come and bring her adult grandchildren and they get to pick their games. It's kind of like, I'll take this game and I'll take this game. We just get notified about 2 days before the game. It's going to be this grandchild and we'll see you there. It's a fun environment to be a part of.
And how does one get an invite?
We can send you a thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, we send you a thank you.